Both guys left it all in the ring last night. Would have left maybe a little piece of themselves in the ring forevermore.
When you think about a low blow, I mean, I thought the low blow that hit Fabio was on the belt line. I thought it was a nothing shot, pointless. You got to make sure it's a good one. You got to make sure you do some damage just to really take the wind out of the sails. And that 1 point deduction, it did cost him the fight.
On my card, it felt like it was a 1 round shootout. It was that tight. Whoever wins that last round wins the fight. I think Fabio Wardley might wake up this morning and feel disappointed.
Fabio Wardley, he looked beaten up and he looked hurt. So I think if anybody's happy with that draw, it's Fabio Wardley. I think Frazer Clarke's going to feel hard done to there. Only just, it was a close fight. It could have gone either way, and we definitely need a rematch. That fight has to happen. Hello and welcome to The Verdict with me, Carl Froch, and him, George Groves, the Saint. Right, we're going to get stuck straight into Sunday's fight with Fabio Wardley and Frazer Clarke. What a battle that was. Two heavyweights leaving it all on the line. George, what is your verdict?
Carl, great to see you. My verdict on last night's heavyweight action. So, I think it was a brilliant fight, and if you haven't had a chance to go see it, get back on and see it. It's sometimes when fights go the distance, I've got to be honest, Carl, and I haven't seen them live, I think, do I really want to have to go back and watch that back? This one you certainly do not want to miss. Both guys left it all in the ring last night. Would have left maybe a little piece of themselves in the ring forevermore. It ended up a draw, which in some ways you couldn't argue with. I think my scorecard ended up with Fabio Wardley winning by a round, and looking at the card as well, I gave him that last round, so it was all to play for me on that 12th and final round. They were playing for all the marbles of 1 round shootout, Carl. But it was a brilliant fight, loads of guts on display, loads of aggression, loads of power, loads of vulnerability, lots of things that we like to see in a British ring for a British title fight. But it was a brilliant fight. What did you make of it, Carl? What was your verdict?
Just really quick before I give you my verdict. You said you scored the fight. Did you score it? What was it? Because that 1 round, the 1 point deficit for the low blow, did that cost Frazer the fight on your card?
So if I had Wardley, I had Wardley by 1 round on my card. So if he didn't get that low blow
been a draw
deduction, then it would have been a draw. And then we had one knockdown as well, didn't we, in the earlier round?
Where he got dropped.
Clarke hit the floor. So yeah, and that was. I mean, we might get onto that. We should probably highlight that one, because on the night, Steve Gray said, "I've told you 3 times." Referee Steve Gray said, "You had 3 warnings, and I'm taking a point." But I didn't really see it, and no one with me at ringside saw those 3 warnings. So maybe they came. In the thick of it, it was noisy in the arena.
I didn't see the 3 warnings, if I'm honest. I thought the low blow that hit Fabio was on the belt line. I thought it was a nothing shot, pointless. When you think about a low blow, I mean, you never cheat in the ring. You never want to cheat. But when I think about it, there's been fights I've been involved in where it's been close, and I know I'm losing. And if I'd have dropped a low blow on somebody in particular, I'm not going to mention his name, big low blow, you got to make sure it's a good one. You got to make sure you do some damage, just to really take the wind out of the sails. If you're going to get 1 warning, or you're going to get a point deducted. But Frazer Clarke just sort of was up close against the ropes. He just touched the belt line as well. It was a belt line shot. I know that's sometimes illegal, sometimes it's not. At the beginning, the referee did say, did he say the belt line's good? I can't fully remember. He pointed out where the low blow is. But he touched him just on the little tiny poxy little body shot. And I just thought, don't take a point off him for that. It wasn't really a foul. Fabio Wardley wasn't even complaining about it. He got hit there, or was he complaining? It was weak. It was a weak shot anyway. For me, it didn't deserve a point deduction, which could have potentially cost him the round. I thought he won that round, Frazer Clarke. So that would have been a 10-9 round for Frazer, and then you deduct the point at the end. So ultimately, that would have been a 9-9 round. I know it's a 10-point must system, so you score it how you would score it, and then at the end, you take the point off. And that 1 point deduction could have definitely won. It did cost him the fight. I agreed with Howard Foster. I think Howard Foster's brilliant. He's always fantastic when he's refereeing, when he's scoring. And he had it like 1-15, 1-12, 2 or 3 rounds. I honestly thought that Frazer Clarke was... He was showing his amateur pedigree and showing his class early on. That nice stiff jab. He was timing Fabio Wardley on the way, and he caught him with a lot of right hands. I know he was getting caught with a couple of shots himself, but I thought that Frazer Clarke's face compared to Fabio Wardley's face told the story of the fight. I know he got that cut on his nose, probably broke his nose, Wardley. He was covered in blood, but his eye was closing. He was breathing heavy with his open mouth earlier than what Frazer Clarke was. I just thought Frazer Clarke he didn't dominate the fight. He didn't win it easy, but for me, he was in control. But he did get absolutely exhausted himself because, as we saw at the end, which I was going to ask you about, actually, I might as well ask you straight away. At the end of the fight, Frazer Clarke sat on the bottom rope. He was that exhausted. Then he collapsed and sat down on the canvas, and they had to kind of pick him up and put him on his stool. What do you think to the psychology of that? I don't think that's a good idea, but I remember you mentioning it on the broadcast. I don't think you was very impressed with the fact that Frazer Clarke sort of slumped down on the canvas, was you?
No, it's like something that I was taught about 11 years of age at my amateur club, that, you know, it doesn't matter how the fight's gone, as soon as that final bell goes, you know, you stand up, control your breathing, don't look tired. If it's really close, stick your arm up in the air, because you never know if them judges are sitting around going, who's won that last round? That was tight. And then the guy who's exhausted slumped on the floor, and then there's one guy with his arm in the air. They might just go, well, it's got to be this guy in this corner. And now, I know that might sound a little bit amateurish, but as I say, on my card, it felt like it was a one-round shootout. It was that tight. Whoever wins that last round wins the fight. And there's 3 minutes to that round, Carl. And then it ebbs and flows. You know, usually Mexican style, you hear that klaxon that last 10 seconds, and then they go to work. Your old pal Arthur Abraham used to like to do that, try and nick around on that last few seconds. But if that last round is tight, and you think surely not after 12 rounds, it can't just come down to the final seconds, but maybe sometimes it does. Yeah. And if you put your hand up in the air and go, I'm in better state than the guy in the other corner, it might just go your way, Carl. It might just go your way. So that was just my thinking there and then at the point. You know, if and then Frazer Clarke, who's the one with the experience, really. He's the one who's boxed all around the world as an amateur. I would have thought he would have known that as tired as you are, unless you are literally that exhausted, where you've got to collapse, Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier style, then, you know, stand up, make yourself seen.
I know what you're saying. Well, Frazer Clarke's got the amateur experience, hasn't he? But he'd only had, eight? That was his ninth fight, I think, as a pro. So he's not been busy enough for me. I thought he showed his amateur quality. I don't think we've made a big enough deal of how good this heavyweight fight was, by the way. If you've not seen the fight, I know we mentioned it earlier, but for me, it was a real epic battle between two solid heavyweights, both coming to win. What was Frazer? 19 stone. I think Fabio Wardley was a stone behind him at nearly 18 stone. And they both went for it early on. They was both putting shots together. They was both absolutely exhausted by about round 7, 8. They was exhausted. They was hanging on for dear life by round 10. I asked Frazer Clarke going to get through the last 6 minutes as well as Wardley. Wardley's face was a bloody mess, covered in claret. His eye was closing. Frazer Clarke looked quite fresh, but you could see he was physically exhausted. He was struggling to stand up at the end of the round. When he leaned on the ropes, he was like leaning over. I think the gum shield came out a couple of times, didn't it? And it was like hanging over the ropes waiting to get his gum shield put back in. I just thought, he cannot walk, and he's still able to fight. That's how difficult and how hard boxing can be at times. And that was a real good show of sort of attrition in that fight. I just thought they both did themselves proud. I thought they both left it all in the ring. But I do feel that Frazer Clarke deserved to get his hand held high at the end of that fight. I thought he'd done enough. I thought he'd boxed with enough cuteness. He'd been boxing sort of Queensberry Rush style, very basic jab right hand. He threw a couple of nice uppercuts. And Fabio Wardley he looked beaten up and he looked hurt. So I think if anybody's happy with that draw, it's Fabio Wardley. I think Frazer Clarke's going to feel hard done to there. Only just, it was a close fight. It could have gone either way, and we definitely need a rematch.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying, Cole. But I'd sort of half see it the other way. I think Fabio Wardley might wake up this morning and feel disappointed. He had Frazer Clarke on the deck. He had him hurt. They both were hurt, certainly, but he had Frazer Clarke in much worse a place at times than he was ever in. He drops Frazer with sort of a stabby right hand. Frazer Clarke sort of slumps. First time he's obviously been down in his pro career. I think he has been dropped before once as an amateur. So
yeah, in the WSB, the World Series of Boxing,
his nose is blown up Wardley, which must be affecting his breathing. He's always had this scar across his nose, so I don't know what nose damage he suffered before in the past, and whether that was, a recurring injury that comes. But they couldn't stop it bleeding in the corner. It must have been affecting his breathing. And I thought, the guy who came to boxing late, white collar fighter to start with. You'd imagine white collar essentially means part time. He's not a conditioned athlete like you would think Frazer Clarke was. So I thought he might be the one who just comes to a halt fitness wise, but he didn't. They both slug it out. They both dig deep. So Wardley with the injuries, with the knockdown, with having to deal with a big occasion. He's never been to an Olympic Games. He's never been to anything high pressure like this before. He'd probably wake up this morning and think, I'm gutted. I could have got it, or I should have got it.
He'd probably be upset by it 100% because he, like you say, with the knockdown, and he's got a little bit more flair and he's a bit more stylistic in it too. A little bit more. It's nice to watch Fabio Wardley when he's flowing. To say he's come from the white collar background, which is essentially not even amateur boxing, it is what it is. It's white collar boxing. It's kind of exhibition stuff. He's done really well, and I understand what he's saying. He might feel a bit hard done to, but I thought he lost the fight because he got beat up. I know Frazer Clarke got hit with shots as well, and he was put down. But I always look at these guys at the end of the fight and during the fight. I think who's losing this fight? Who looked like they're getting beat? And Fabio Wardley looked like he was getting beat up. Do you think that was contender for fight of the year? Was it that good?
Yeah, it very well could be. As we left the arena, there was a few people said that's the best heavyweight fight I've seen live. And I thought, when you think about it, you're like, wow, yeah, it could well have been. And it was all action. It had everything people would want. Loads of drama. Both guys hurt. Loads of heart. At times, some decent skill. And a bit of needle and a bit of respect at the end. But yeah, so I think it's a candidate for fight of the year. We still feels pretty early on this year, Carl. I'll tell you something that I know you're a massive fan of, and they were sort of half saying it and scrambling for it straight after the fight, is talk of a rematch. So I kind of think one way with it, but I want to ask you first. Do you think these guys will go straight back in with another rematch, fight each other again? Because it's a draw, so we kind of want to see who the winner was, and also it was a great fight, so there'll be public demand for it.
Yeah, I 100% think there's got to be a rematch. Will there be an immediate rematch? Who knows? I don't know who's next in line for the British or the Commonwealth, which Fabio Wardley's got. But I think it's got to be, for me, that fight has to happen straight away. They need a breather. Fabio's got to sort his nose out, get himself healed, get himself back on it, and then I just think that the next fight for both of these guys has to be a rematch. It just has to be. And how does that fight go? I don't know. I mean, I'd say based on that first one and the fact that Frazer Clarke only had 8 fights, he's not. I know he's an amateur. He's an amateur star. He did well in the amateurs, an Olympic medalist, etc. But as a professional, which as you know is a different sport, still boxing, but it's not the same sport. It's more brutal professional boxing. The 3-minute rounds are tough. The gloves are smaller. There's no head guards, whatever, no vest. It's just different. Boxing's a real fight. Amateur boxing is boxing, in it. It's more the art of pugilism and scoring your shots, body, head, keeping out of the way. It's not up close and personal and brutal, and it doesn't get that heavy in there. I mean, it's slightly different for the heavyweights, but anyway, I just think this rematch has to happen. Who do I think wins the rematch? Listen, without the damage to Fabio Wardley's nose, Ada says, I think Frazer Clarke's going to grow in confidence from that. He'll come back better. Both the guys will learn a lot, and both the guys will come better. So I think the rematch will be an even better fight, even more of a spectacle. I would have said Frazer Clarke gains the experience and potentially just nicks another close fight, but wins a close fight in a rematch. Because Fabio Wardley's nose was that badly damaged, and he had that much blood coming down his face, that blood would have also been going down the back of his throat and setting and hampering his breathing. And he'd have been aware that he's got a badly damaged nose. So I think that would have affected the way he would have boxed. Well, definitely would have affected the way he was throwing his punches. So, again, I think a rematch between Frazer Clarke and Fabio Wardley is another really, really close pick and fight. And I don't know. I think they'll both improve, and I think it'll be another close one. It's who puts the work in the gym. They're so evenly matched, these two boys. I just think whoever turns up on the night, the fittest, who's ever put the hardest work in the gym and on the road, that'll be the person that'll get his hand raised at the end, because I think it'll be another really, really close one, and it will come down to the conditioning and the fitness. What do you reckon?
Well, yeah, I think both fighters would have left something in the ring last night. That's the only thing. If they go to war again next, you're taking years off their potential future pro careers. Yeah. I believe, because
Fabio Wardley's slightly younger though. Sorry to stop you. Wardley's younger. Frazer Clarke. That's a good point. Frazer Clarke might have aged him a little bit last night because he got dropped, didn't he? And he was exhausted. I don't think he took the kind of punishment though, did he? That ages a fighter.
But he's only 8 fights in, so if that was a hard rule in 12 rounds. It was the hardest of introductions you could have into like that sort of championship boxing. For both guys had a really tough night with each other, and if you think you got to go and do that again, we might get a winner next time, and you hope we would. But then, where does the loser go from there? That's a tough, potentially 24 rounds to come out without a win, and then even the winner, and then they're scrambling to get them in the mix with the very top boys after 2 hard grueling fights. I think it wouldn't surprise me if they both go away, go separate routes for a little bit, get the injuries out of the way, get a bit of momentum, and then that fight happens again in 12 to 18 months time, because it's a strange one, because it is domestic level, it is a British title, Commonwealth title, and they're both inexperienced as pros. But you can both see that there is potential there for them to go on to the top level, if it all goes right, if they have that opportunity to. I had my fight with James DeGale for the British title. I think I had 11 or 12 fights. He had 1 or 2 less. We didn't do the immediate rematch. We had to go different routes. We finally got there in the end. But what we didn't get was the rematch that everyone wanted. So sometimes, Carl, if you don't get that immediate rematch, it might slip away from you. So sometimes you have to demand it and make it happen. But then sometimes it don't work out for you. So, it's a funny old sport, boxing.
Well, that's it for another episode of The Verdict. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure you hit like, share, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel. And we'll see you next time.